data matters. And over the years, doing a lot of research on Black entrepreneurs and other related issues with regard to race, policing, have generated a lot of data, do a lot of data aggregation, come up with statistical recommendations, and I have come to a conclusion that data never lies. Data is data. You see it there, you use it to make decisions, and you give it to policymakers, and they have to do what they have to do. They have to look at the data and make decisions. So I'm very happy to introduce John Stevenson. He's a visionary senior executive passionate about helping companies revitalize their brands and seize the new cultural market opportunity. John brings Canadian and international multicultural research and strategy experience leading a lot of marketing initiatives for brands such as Ford Canada, Loblaws, Sobeys, Hot Renfrew, Intact Insurance. John thrives in uncovering consumer data, and he'll present about some exciting information he uncovered, especially when we look at a Black consumer. He has also worked in different areas, including launching Cultural IQ. John was a founding partner of Ethno Dialogue, Inc., a leading cultural marketing agency in Canada for more than 10 years. John holds MBA degree from the London School of Economics. So, John, you can join us here, and then we can continue a conversation. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can sit up there. I would also like to introduce Dr. Cleophas Justin Pierre. He's an international labor organization trained market and migration consultant specializing in the field of employment and employment, and is currently the leading researcher in the Caribbean region. His primary area of expertise is in the field of migration and market research. The field involves matters related to forced migration, human trafficking, social research, conducting surveys, and formulation of market information systems. Over the last 10 years, Dr. Pierre conducted in excess of 60 consultancies in more than 30 countries. Dr. Pierre and his firm currently have one of the largest labor market migration database, Caribbean Data and Information Portal, on Caribbean migrants, including those in diaspora, with 7.4 million entries. This expansive database includes data of over 1,700 occupations in the region, including vocational, education, smugglers, human traffickers, crime statistics, data on skills, and entrepreneur attainment. This database is funded by the Partnership of Black Organizations in the USA or Canada. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pierre to continue the conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, so to introduce the conversation, our operation this afternoon, we will have conversation from the panel, and then based on the conversations we had this morning, I was very happy, especially in the session we had with Camille, where people in the group were able to share some insights. So I'm going to let the audience as well ask the panel some questions which might emerge. For those who might not know, I have been working with SCBN for now going to 2 years, looking at the entrepreneur skills and coming up with a training curriculum for Black entrepreneurs. We started this project last year, January. We are likely going to conclude it in December this year, and then next year we are going to start a training program and a mentoring portal for Black entrepreneurs. I've been happy to work with a faculty of 3 professors, and then I've been leading that project with a number of students. Since last year, January, up to now, I think I've been able to employ about 12 to 13 students to look into data mining. And something I have discovered looking on this project is that there seems to be a pattern in data. And this pattern in data shows that it's a struggle for a black entrepreneur to compete effectively when you look at other demographics and race groups. And one of the things I've noted in the data is that many of them, they have to work so hard to convince the lending authorities. And some data sets show that when they go to get these loans, they are subjected to interrogation. And what I mean by interrogation, it's like you are a police officer being stopped, being asked questions. Well, you have a very good laid out business plan. Their other race counterparts don't face those challenges. And women, especially women entrepreneurs, the data I've looked at shows that oftentimes they are not taken that very seriously. And even when they approve a loan for them, it's not as much as they had asked for. There is also an underlying, what I can call sort of institutional discrimination, especially when you look at how they are held to a very much higher standards than other counterparts. And when you look at the women entrepreneurs, it's oftentimes they operate in an environment which is dominated by the white man. And this makes it very difficult for them to compete effectively. Another thing I've noted in the data patterns, especially which students and the professors have been able to generate, is a pattern of conduct which also shows that it's a landmark for a black entrepreneur to succeed. And many of them fail in the first 5 years. And for those who manage to go through the first 5 years, it's because maybe they have networks, families who have money, certain connections, certain networks, which are able to link them. And many black entrepreneurs, they don't have this mentoring opportunity. They don't have family members who can dump money in their accounts to start the business. So they have to navigate this world of politics and race, and it's a tough world for black entrepreneurs. But this consumer base oftentimes is undermined by very long research. So what we will do today, we will look at data. I have had conversations oftentimes with John and Dr. Pierre, and issues they have shared with me have correlated with what we have discovered in our own research. So I will start my first question with Dr. Pierre. And my question is with regard to racial and ethnic disparities in entrepreneurs. While the causes are well documented why many black entrepreneurs struggle, eliminating disparities in the black entrepreneur ecosystem when you compare with other race groups is very difficult. Why do you think this is the case? Documented evidence is there to see. But why is that something positive is not coming out?
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, thank you for being here. So my name is Justin Pierre, and I am the Director of Research and Business Development at the Canadian management consultancy firm of Dunn, Pierre, Barnett and Company Canada Limited. And as the moderator said, Brian, we have been over 15 years. We have conducted about over 160 studies in 40 countries. And we are, I think, maybe one of the largest data providers. We specialize in collecting data on black people, not only in Canada, but in about 80 other countries. And I think we are known internationally as one of the premier data collectors on the black people. With your question with regard to black people dealing with the whole ethnic makeup. As a Canadian, as for example, we have to know that who we are in Canada. So on average, we have about 1.3 million persons in Canada. As entrepreneurs, we have on average about 22,000 black businesses of substance here. So what we do as an organization, as a company, is that we regularly collect labor force data on about 293 black firms all over Canada. So we have a good understanding of of the average income of a black person, the average income of persons in a black business, how much money, the revenue of black firms, where they are. So I think we have a good data. What we also have to look at is that we as an organization, we as a people, so we have 1.2 million black persons in Canada. We have about 22,000 businesses. Okay, so we have as a population, so we have about a 3.8% or 2.8% business to population ratio. It means that we as business people, owners, Dunn, Pierre, Barnett, different companies, we as a population set cannot employ our black children, because the population, that 3% is not enough. We as a community, we need to grow and we need to expand black businesses. As I had in the discussion with Mr. Ryan Knight, we were looking to employ have about 50,000 black businesses over the next let's say 5 years. So we think that there will be an opportunity for more and more black business to be in that market space. It is critical for to have more black businesses, because black businesses employ black people. Okay, and that one is the critical issue we have to deal with, because since that most of the other populations don't employ us, it is critical that we have more black businesses. Okay, so if we have, let's say, 40,000 black businesses over the next couple of years, or 50,000, it will we will be in the best economic position, because we as a black nation, as a black country, if these 50,000 businesses employ, let's say, 10 black persons, we will have a population of employment rate about 500,000 people, which could bring us to almost total employment. And many of the social issues, the crime, the incarceration, most of these things are economic-related crime. So if all we need as a society is to employ our own, and as the ILO said, the International Labour Organization, what we want is decent work. And since that we are not getting decent work in our country, we need to, we look for other ways of getting employment. And since that most organizations, in Canada, 70% white, do not employ black people, and also most organizations do not do business with black people. We have to have this discussion so that the wider population will start getting more black people in terms of employment. So I'll stop here now.
Good point. And as you kept speaking, it reminded me of yesterday's speaker, and I think her name was Chloe, and she said that our company, they employ all black people. Right. And it resonates very well, because I have had over the years having conversations with black folks, and they're telling me I am highly qualified, I have all the experience, and nobody even keep giving me a short list, even being called for interviews, and it can be quite very frustrating. My next question is going to go to John. And the black community in Canada is the third largest visible minority group in Canada, numbering about 1.2 million, and continue to grow. Why do you think, despite the large size of the black community, it is often ignored by corporate Canada and the marketing community?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Thank you for that. So a little bit about me. I run an ethnocultural research and marketing firm, Cultural IQ. I've worked both in not-for-profit, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in the social determinants of health, and the research that we did was largely because of the findings we have, which we've just come out with a new study on interviewing 500 black Canadians in a partnership with Silver Trust Media. The biggest challenge as a marketer, because I often would go to large firms, and I'd say, look, You want to focus on the Chinese and South Asian because those are the top two ethno-cultural communities. But the third one is the black community. And often what I'd hear is, well, you know, let's focus on the Filipino instead, which is the fourth largest community. And a number of reasons for that. Number one, the black community is much more dispersed geographically, whereas the Chinese and South Asian are very focused geographically. The third area, and the largest area to me, was a lack of data. There simply hasn't been enough data on the opportunity and the size of the black consumer market. And so our research has really started to tap into, identify, there is a big market. You know, Moses, for example, that runs a media outlet, knows that if he has this data, he'll enable to get corporate Canada to invest more in black media. That's going to drive increased investment writ large across black companies as well. So by recognizing the importance of the black consumer, it will drive black businesses and also it'll empower black Canadian corporations, white mainstream corporations, if you like, to invest more within a black consumer. The assumption is we paint them all the same color, and yet there are real pockets of wealth and real pockets of opportunity within the black consumer marketplace.
Very good response, because I have found also a similar pattern in our research we have been doing. There isn't a lot of documented evidence about the black demographics when it comes to consumer base. It's quite very sad, because I see what Edon spoke this morning, that when you go on the federal government website, you are going to find a lot of information about the black community employment statistics in terms of success rate. To be very honest, the information is very, very scarce, and that's why us in academia, as black folks, we take it very, very seriously to provide as much documented data as possible to help the policymakers. Yeah. And this brings me to another question to Dr. Pierre. Why do you think the non-government organization and the private sector can play a very important role in data mining?
Right. Yes, very, very good question. And I think that is why we are here, and we have to thank the ACBN for having this venture. The challenge we have as let's say for black businesses, okay, or the Canadian public, is because of the dispersion of our community. So there are black people are scattered over the country. So for example, in almost every province, okay, we see the pockets of black people. And as a result of our biannual surveys, we see that the trend, for example, is increasing. So, for example, we have black people here in Toronto, but in the prairies, for example, there's the population of black people there. It's booming. Okay, 200-300% increase in terms of, and in our survey, it shows that many of these persons highly educated. Okay, however, when they come to Canada, most of them cannot be employed or are not given employment. Some of them, they may be a doctor or a lawyer, as we mentioned, and nobody will employ them, so they are getting into their own business, as John will tell you later on. And you know, we need to know that. So corporate Canada, the wider Canadian community, have to know where they are, and we as a people have to be able to provide that kind of data. Because this is the challenge we have. Even sometimes when we collect data, people ask, where is this data going to? I do not want to give my name. I don't want anyone to call me. So we have to be, as a society, be made comfortable and made aware that the data that we ask for is not personal. Nobody will never know your name. And it is okay to give those data. Because if we don't give the data, people would not know who we are and what are some of the concerns we have. So I always want to emphasize that the issue of having data and providing data, filling out the surveys, is very important if we as a society want to move to the next level.
Very good point. Oftentimes I have conversations with people, especially when I used to be a professor, and you hear people saying, I want to start a restaurant for the black community. And the question I ask them, have you done a market research? Have you got the data that show you're going to find a consumer base? And you hear them say, no, I see a lot of black people in this community. There should be a lot of black people. And I say, you are missing something. You need data before you start talking about registering a business. So data, many people think it's figures, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, data is not just figures. Data is a lot of information which you can put together, ranging from demographics to psychographics. And you dig in there, then you come up with a better understanding of the community you want to serve. This brings me to another question, John. There is a myth about the black consumer as not an important segment of the consumer base. As in any community, there is a spectrum between those that are financially challenged and those who are wealthy, those who are employees or underemployed, or those who are entrepreneurs and professionals. Why do you think the lack of data on black consumer has allowed this myth to continue?
Thank you. That's a great question. So again, not having the data, corporate Canada is able to say, well, I don't think the black consumer has a wherewithal or the inclination to purchase products. It's changing. We've seen it change significantly in the last couple of years, particularly. We did a recent study for a big box retailer. I won't mention the name of the company. And we identified that next to the South Asian within the GTA, the black consumer was the largest opportunity for that particular client. They were somewhat surprised, honestly, by that. But when we show the data and the opportunity, and this was at home development, home building, they were like, okay, now we understand. The black consumer is prepared to invest. They're over-indexing and wanting to purchase new homes, wanting to purchase new cars. They're over-indexing and wanting to buy organic and brands. They over-index in wanting to buy Canadian brands. We did a study recently with Imagine Canada. I'm sure some of you have heard of that. It's a large not-for-profit organization. Mm-hmm. And the largest culture that donates was the black consumer. They over-index against any other community in funding over, I think it's over $1,000 per capita on an annual basis in terms of funding. A lot of that goes to religious organizations, but that data was before our research was not available to donations and charities. So again, bringing this data forward, and more importantly, disseminating the data. That's the key, is making sure the data is disseminated, packaged, and really pushed out by all of us to make sure that we start to see change, not only by corporations, but by institutions and organizations, and ultimately the government of Canada as well.
Very good point. Actually, I heard about that research as well, where Imagine Canada was identified as the majority of donors actually came from the black community. And I would love to know, maybe it's another project I should take on to see where much of those donations went, whether they funded the black community, charities, and non-for-profit. If the majority of the donors were black, perhaps it was their time to chew as well. My next question is, Canada is vast, and collecting data for policymakers can be a challenge. How do we, as a black community ecosystem, contribute and improve the black situation? What recommendation would you provide when it comes to data mining and data sharing?
Thank you very much. Yes, as I said, that what we have been trying as an organization, we try to collect data. So we have our annual or biannual surveys. So we can conduct labor force surveys on about 393 black firms. So what we want to do, for example, we are trying to do, or we are in the process of doing with the help of the Business Development Bank, who have been, I want to thank them for being the support behind us, is we're now developing what is called a Black Data and Information Portal. I think that it should be launched in a few months. It's something called, it's dbpglobal.net, so dbpglobal.net. So where on this portal now, we can have data on Black people based on the postal codes, schools, education, country, income, credit rating, all of the information that is required for Black people to make decisions. Yeah, it's there. All of the data that we have collected are collected privately and also through open source. And so it is important that we start collecting and keeping a proper database on who we are and our trend, because this is the only way people can take us seriously as a ethnic group. Because so that when we provide the data, the decisions can be made. For example, I just want to say something. The average Canadian population, the age of the average Canadian population is around 41.2 years. The average age of the black people is 29.6. So we are about 26% are children. So even though we are the 29.9%, we are very young. But the potential, look at the potential of on the wider community. We are high consumers. We like specific products. We like specific brand. So if the wider Canadian market start investing in our community, they have a good market share, the good customers in 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years. So that's important of data.
Very good point, very, very good point. And as you kept talking, I was thinking about a research I did 3 years ago in Chicago. And we looked at the police data and policing. And I'm currently looking at the same research right now. I'm looking at GTA, looking at policing, and then looking at crime, and then looking at race. And what we found in Chicago research was that even though the media tend to portray a Black person in crime repeatedly, actually the majority of people who were involved in crime were from Mexico and Latin America. And this is because media has a tendency to perpetuate a certain stereotype in order to sell information to the advertisers. This brings me to another last question now, John, before we open it to the public. Black Canadians over-index when it comes to entrepreneurship. You hear that, Black Canadians over-index. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, Blacks are actually prolific entrepreneurs. The percentage increase among Black immigrant entrepreneurs is highest at 181% entrepreneurship, compared to 164% South Asian and only 79% for Chinese. Why does the data say as to why this is the case? Why do you think this is the case? Why don't we
the question?
see
Okay,
this?
got it. Okay, so good question. One point back to the previous question. I think the other issue, and we're going to come back to this in a bit, we have a massive labor crisis. I heard from recent posts from John Stackhouse, who is one of the top guys at RBC, that we're a million jobs short right now. There's a million jobs that are vacant currently within Canada. And yet, you know, we have a highly qualified Black labor force that often is not recognized. When we did a survey recently with Pink Attitude, and we studied over 2,000 Canadians, and one of the key things there was that even finding that first job, the challenge that Blacks face in getting recognition of their credentials is a serious problem. And so it starts from that kind of research. In terms of this question, one of the big things that comes out of our study, and I guess one of the findings is are Blacks naturally entrepreneurial? There is something to say about that. But I also think that there are significant barriers in the labor force that you've already alluded to. A lot of Black Canadians feel that they're underrepresented, that they're not given the kind of voice and opportunities that other cultures did. And again, in our large Pink study, we found a number of barriers that blacks face relative to other Canadians in terms of advancing their careers in corporate Canada. I did a number of key informant interviews as part of our recent study, and I heard one interview, one person say to me, which was really disturbing, that a lot of black Canadians only want to go to a certain level within the organization, because when they get to a certain level, they start getting, they feel like they're going to get torn down by people of other colors, that they almost get hurt, if you like, if they advance too far in their career. And I hope that's not the case in many organizations, and we need to do a lot more at dealing with D&I issues across many organizations.
Thank you very much, John. Yeah, you pointed something quite very interesting here. Black entrepreneurs by nature have these entrepreneur skills. Are they entrepreneurial by nature, or it's because of the barriers that they face day to day that pushes them to the periphery to actually be able to become entrepreneurs? I'm running out of time, it appears. Okay, so we open it to the public now.
Okay, I have two questions. The first question, you mentioned about the studies in the States, which indicated that blacks were not the major crime perpetrators.
Yeah.
So that information gives a different understanding of our activities in a society. So what is being done when that information is being seen? It's good for us to hear it, but what is being done? And how do we use that information to forward our successes?
If it's directed at the panel, but since I was involved in that research I spoke about, which was conducted in Chicago, I did the similar research, especially in London, in the United Kingdom. But let me speak about the Chicago case study, and this followed the death of Trevor Martins. And when we looked at I don't know whether many people are familiar with this dynamics in the United States with regard to race and crime. But in Chicago, there was a young kid who was killed, Trevor Martins. There was an uprising, and it took so many years for the actually white police officer to be charged, Van Dyke. And it took a lot of demonstrations, and finally we started looking at data. Once much of the data set started coming out, and this is what we often do in research, is to distribute, to have conversation with the policymakers. I always go to my MPP here where I live. I sometimes have conversations with the Member of Parliament, the federal Member of Parliament. Lobbying comes in as well. Like what Edon said this morning, there is a lot of things going on in the background which many times you don't get to hear about, but you just see policy changes. Like what is happening in Toronto with the report that came up. Before, did we used to get those type of reports? Absolutely no. But it's because of people exposing that data, sharing it, especially with this type of social media. If you can share with me your email, I can forward the research project I'm talking about.
I understand that the data is indicating what our activities are. That is great. I could go on, but now that we know, okay, everybody's in this room. You've given us this information. That data is important. I believe that our country has known for a long time that blacks are undervalued. It is not new. The data is confirming what we've already always felt and known. So, with the new data that supports what we feel and have known and have lived, what information are you giving to us with this data to change our lives? What do we do with it?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll try to answer the question in a few words, but I want to give you an example to see what happens. So, okay, and that's the reason why we have, I would say, advocacy. So we have to have more sessions like these. We also have to report a lot. We have to write because the documentation, and the reason why we are here is because there's not enough information. A lot of the information on the black community is anecdotal, and it's also it's word of mouth. We need to start documenting. So I just give you one example. So we have this labor force survey that we conduct twice a year. So we ask, for example, on the questionnaire, we ask persons how many black people have mortgages. Okay, just to have a mortgage. Just for example, so 68% of the population, the Canadian population, have a mortgage. But when you ask black people, so a black husband, black wife, is 7.8%. So we are very low, we don't have mortgages. But listen to this, okay? If you now remove a black spouse and put that, and replace her or him with a white spouse, that percentage from 7.8 moved to 31.2.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it shows that racism has an impact on how black people get mortgages, how black people get loans. Okay, most people know that banks don't give black people loans for business. They will not tell you no, but they will not tell you yes. And also, we on average have a lower credit rating, 640 compared to other organizations. But all of this information comes as a result of collecting data over a period of time. So then we could analyze and then take this information and give it to the policy holders, so that they can make change and legislate change. And that's why we need the cooperation of the black community to start providing that data, start filling out the surveys. Because if we do not fill out the surveys, and what will happen is that nobody would not know our concerns. See?
Thank you. So basically what you're saying is we need to be active in providing information about ourselves.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very good, very good. And I think that on Monday, for example, I'm one of the consultants on the Canada Equity, we are reviewing the Canadian Equity Act, and we are asking persons, for example, Mr. Knight will send an email. On Monday, from the 22nd, from Monday to the 28th, we'll be having consultations. So we would like reaching out to persons to give your input, to come on these surveys, on these webinars, to give your opinion. Because we as a black people, we do not give our opinions. We take it personal when someone asks you how much money you make. So we have to be aware that the information that we are collecting is for your benefit and your children's benefit. So for example, lastly, if I have a friend let's say I have a friend in Jamaica, for example, any country, and the person asks me, Justin, I want to come to Canada. Where is the best community could I live? Nobody knows. Which school that provides the best curriculum for black people? Nobody knows. Okay, which bank that has the best policies for black people? Nobody knows, because we are not involved in our own process, in our success. And this is a good an opportunity for us now to start providing the relevant information, collecting the census. Okay, and that is why our advocacy, and we need to just market.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Just first and foremost, thank you guys for being professionals in the space that you guys operate in. I know data is one of those things that could be a little boring. I see people putting their hands on their head. But with that said, it's very important, right? With the data, we're able to make proper decisions and make better inferences. So my question today is, for someone being a young black professional who's also just recently starting the business, where would I be able to tap in to be able to get access to this useful data? I know it was mentioned that there's a new platform that's going to be coming up, but currently right now, where would you guys recommend either maybe top 3, or what would be the easiest way to get in contact or access to the data you guys have been collecting? And
Can I ask
that's
you,
my question.
What kind of data are you looking for? Consumer data, market research data? It really comes down to the kind of data you're looking to get.
I appreciate that. So I guess at this point, nothing specifically. I'm at a place from a knowledge level where I do not know what I do not know. So I'm asking, generally speaking, maybe some recommendations on where I can start my data journey, and maybe learning how to interact with the data would be a good point to start, I guess, if that helps define my question better.
So
Thank you.
if I can start, our general process, so when we're working with, let's say we use a client, we would say, first of all, identify your niche. What do you focus it on? Maybe it's...
So let's say financial advisory.
Okay, financial advisor. Okay, so the number one area would be where's the best niche opportunity? Where's the market in terms of the size of a community that maybe is underserved? So that's secondary data. That's like consumer, which you can mine off Stats Canada. You may have data sources as well that you can get access to. So that's the size of the prize, if you call it. But that doesn't necessarily mean they want to work with someone like you.
Exactly.
No offense to that. I mean, just say, and it's anything, right?
None taken.
So then it's primary data.
Right.
So then it's when you have to go in and actually engage in that group of people that you identify geographically or culturally or however you define that market, and that's what we can do. Honestly, I've done intercepts. Literally going up and saying, "Hey, can I ask you 5 questions?" I just take 5 minutes of your time. And you can do it on an iPad, and you can just literally get some consumer insight. And you may say, you know what, this particular market, maybe it's there, but it isn't right. It doesn't feel right for me. It's not. I don't want to work with these kind of people. I should work over here, which is another market opportunity. So it's combining primarily research, that consumer-facing research, with secondary research, which is the size of the opportunity. And that's really the niche that you need to play in order to really identify where's the best opportunity to grow your business over time.
Thank you.
Very well said, and I just want to reiterate that statistics is very important, because statistics is blind. Statistics is the true representation of the people, not the politicians. It's the statistics. So whatever we have to rely on the data, because the data, is what it is. Anybody can say anything. However, the data is the really true representative of the people.
Thank you.
Hi, hello, good afternoon. I heard you mention about credentials, and I know there's credentials like SmartServe and your food handling. So I was wondering, since those are types of resources that we could reach out to and pay for and use to go to jobs, if you have another list that you would know that is accessible for us to go to, so we can get those jobs that are in need.
This is for yourself in general.
Well, anybody in the room probably wouldn't.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know I don't know if you were born in Canada or born overseas or much your heritage. It's really irrelevant. Part of the big issue for me and research we've been focusing on lately is not recognizing foreign credentials. So maybe you had a university education somewhere else and you've come to Canada, gone to school here as a college degree. What we need to work on, and this is not your issue, this is an institutional challenge, is for organizations to recognize foreign credentials, foreign experience,
right,
foreign education, and a foreign background. And so that's I've been working closely with a number of organizations to try to build credentialing processes. So for example, there's software out there that allows HR managers to evaluate an international school and say, what is the equivalency in Canada? So I've gone to a school in India, it's really good at IT. How does it rank in compared to MIT or say the University of Waterloo in Kitchener-Waterloo? That's what needs. That's an institutional challenge. That isn't your challenge. It reflects on you, but that's an institutional challenge that we need to work to change.
Very good. And just to segue what you said is if we have the information, we could then the policymakers, the political persons, the legislators, they can also make policies to change that. But unless we do not provide that kind of data, in fact, for example, we did a national skills audit for the Turks and Caicos. So we had like 93 persons from 93 different countries. So we had analyzing their data. We found out something very interesting. So we did a study. There are a lot of foreigners in the Turks and Caicos. We found out that Jamaican women had the highest manager per population ratio. So this was very interesting to us. So when we look at that, based on our data from other sources, from other countries, we also found the trend in many developed countries, including Canada. And so when we look at the statistics from our research, we also found the same trend that Jamaican women are managers in many organizations. So they still have that trend, this high manager to population ratio. So for example, in data in terms of policy, so we conducted a survey among bank employees, management in bank employees, black management in bank employees, and we asked them, what qualification did you have? Why are you a manager? Why are you a VP? And most of them had a degree in economics or math. See, so now with that kind of information, you could then, inform your children if they want to have a career in whatever field. What are the requirements? And that's why the data is so important.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know there is a question there. That same data also showed that many of the black people who studied economics actually tended up to go higher up in the financial strata. So the courses you study, I look at data. I know the advice I can give my children if they are picking up the courses to study and give them the rationale why I'm making those recommendations based on data. Thank you very much. Can I ask the next question?
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone in the room. I find that statistics and data is very important, I agree. What's equally important is the context and the story. So there were questions earlier about, we know all of this information. We've said that it is our experience, but it has not been validated. So now you say, okay, information is important, and again, I say I agree. However, the next step has still not been addressed, meaning you're encouraging information to be given. We have to recognize the history behind why people are reticent to offer that information. Institutions, statistics, all of these things have been used against communities in different ways in the diaspora. So people are reluctant to offer up that type of information, opening themselves to that kind of vulnerability, because the question is how it will be used. I come from an institution that has been focused on enforcement for many years. There are many times when we would say, please, community, offer information so we can help you, help us help you. However, it would not happen because there's not trust. So part of that question about what the next steps are, it has to be addressed even before the information is retrieved, because people will want to know why, the 5 W's and the H of that information gathering. How will it be used? How will it benefit me as an individual and as a collective? And how will I play a role in that? Meaning, I don't just give up the information, take it off like my baby and I don't know what's happening to it. I want to play a role in the use of that information, giving you information as to how I would appreciate the use of it, how I do not want it to be used, Have people play a role in the use of that information gathering. When people have a stake in something, they are more willing to participate in the offering of it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things when I worked at the Wellesley Institute, which is taught community-based research, the key in that policy is to always leave capacity behind, to build capacity, and to ensure that anything you, A, does no harm, B, actually benefits the community. And I agree with you, the end use of the data, before you do any community research, you have to absolutely ensure that the community knows exactly the use case and the policy implications of how that data is going to be utilized. I absolutely concur 100% with your sentiment.
Likewise, just want to finish. Yeah, and that is why it's important to the policymakers be involved, because data also has to be marketed. Okay, for example, when we as a firm, we do a lot of surveys, and every time we do a survey, our survey is like Christmas. Okay, so we prepare for it, we market it. So we on emails or social media, we market the survey. So when the persons receive the survey now, they say, oh, I've seen this 3, 4, 5 times. So it's very important for us as community leaders and those in the government to market what we're doing and market the benefits. We ask persons from the universities are here to let them, when they have students, to market the importance of the benefits of providing data and the use of the data and the involvement of the community in the data for decision making and problem solving.
Thank you very much. I think we are running out of time. Hope that's the last person.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. One quick question. Given the fact that you perform your own surveys and you are maybe 1, 2 firms, your capacity is limited, would you then suggest within the Black community that as an organization you could provide templates around the type of surveys that could be done that other organizations could actually do and then feed that data back to you in an aggregated anonymous form?
Absolutely. I would absolutely. So we'd both be delighted to help you with that. I mean, we have a panel of about 150,000 Canadians of different backgrounds. So we often do our research through our panelists. But if you want to do an independent study, what we do often is we'll create a template. We create the panel, and we give you a link, so we could host the survey, and then you could do your own research with your own individual participants, and then we could feed you back the data. The cost is nominal, and we can figure out a way of working together. There's lots of ways of doing that. We want to do, data for good. A lot of what I try to do as often as possible is do research that is capacity building, to your previous question. So I'm delighted to talk to you about how we can support you guys moving forward with those kind of projects.
Yeah, very good. And for in our case, all our data, so we collect data based on ISIC codes, based on ISCO codes, and based on NASIC codes. So all our data that we provide is to ILO standard, which is the International Labour Organization standards and the UN standards. So all our data can be measured in every country. So what our goal, for example, for collecting those data is to remove Black people in Canada and treat them as a country. So we can now compare the Black persons in Canada to someone in Jamaica, South Africa, Ghana, Trinidad and Tobago, and see what are some of the nuances. And that is so all our data it has to be standardized. So in our case, we collect a lot of standardized data. So income, okay, average healthcare, issues with racism, finance, etc. But because our data, we collect data on so many countries, we standardize it, and we definitely would. But if you need any additional information, you can call us, and we'll be able to provide the templates. And also the ILO we also provide what is called a KILM, which is the key indicators of the labor market. So all our data are standardized because it is used in so many countries.
Right. And finally, the reality is that there are probably quite a number of organizations that has collected data over years.
Yes.
So the next step would be then how do you begin to mine that data?
Right.
ACBN, you got a ton of data there, Ryan, right? So from a strategy perspective, if we wanted to quickly gather data, then that would be to work arm in arm to provide the kind of standards that are required, to make the survey acceptable
Yes.
in an international way to organizations like ACBN and tons of others. I mean, you can go probably down to most religious organizations,
Yes.
and they can
Yes.
give you
Yes.
a ton of data.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it might be worthwhile
Yes.
having some conversations between what you would need in order to gather and mine the current database or the current data and then compile it into your database.
Very good, very good. And I think that is where the trajectory that we are on, ourselves and Mr. Ryan's firm, we are conducting the first Black labor market needs assessment. And I think right now we have the government involvement, and we all in terms of FACE and some of the other organizations. So we are now, this is a critical time because all of the data is for one purpose. The purpose is the development of Black people, also, and the purpose is for the marketing of Black people to the world, because we want to increase tourism, because when people from all over the world come to Canada, they see that how Black people live. Okay, it's special because we are living now is the best time to be Black in the world and best time to be Black in Canada, and we're very proud about that.
Thank you very much. I think this conversation can continue at another time. Since this is the first year of this conference, I believe we can be having more of this moving forward. Thank you very much, panel, and I appreciate for making your time available today.
What a wonderful panel. Please give one more round of applause with gusto, people, for this fantastic panel discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for joining us today.